Hello and welcome to the channel. Today's video I'm going to discuss the software that I'm using to monitor my solar system, and then with that we will be able to see as well the usage, how much electricity I'm pushing back into the grid, and how efficient the whole process is, and if it is really worth the money. So let's go and have a look, and we'll discuss it further in the office. Okay, back in the office, let's have a look. Actually, when I put the Solarman smart software on, I see that we have load shedding today, which is, or right now I should say, which is a good example that we can quickly touch on that and we can see how that works. So one can see on this flowchart that at the moment the panels are producing 3.6 kilowatt of power. There's no power coming from the grid, that's off, and you know, the battery is just trickling some power out. That's always alive, basically, if I can put it that way. It will either supply or get some power into the batteries as it is cycling. And then obviously at the moment the house is using a lot of electricity, 3.69, so that is exactly almost what the panels will supply. So I'm not sure what all is on at the moment. It might be somebody is running a dryer or, you know, a washing machine. I know my two boys are here, so they both running their gaming computers. I got two computers running in my office and my laptop, so yes, all of those are quite a bit of power that is consumed as well. So yeah, everything in the house, as you can see, running as normal without any grid power. So let's start on the top, and we can have a look at this software. So I'm using the Solarman smart software, which was supplied basically with the installer. They put me onto the software. I installed it, subscribed and logged in. They gave me some login details, and yep, then everything went live. There's a lot of not a lot of customization. There's actually no customization, but quite a bit of information that you can put into you know, for your plant. Most of it will be done by the installer, but if they don't do it, it's very easy to go to your plant details and do it there. That's not the purpose of this video. We're going to run through and see what we can see on all these charts. So as you can see, the plant has been running for 818 days. The total power I fed back into the grid in this time was 15 megawatt, and the total production was 26.4 megawatt for this period. Right, so this is the actual curve for today. Right now you can see during the night, this is blue would be production power, and then consumption power is in the red, and the grid power is in the yellow. So let's just take this chart for as we're working with it today. During the night you will see we had load shedding again. So let me just go back one day just so that it makes a bit more sense. So during the night the power went off somewhere, it looks like 11 o'clock last night. You can see it dropped off there. Let's zoom that little bit in there. So the power went off, so we got nothing from the grid, and because it was at night, you'll see the panels was 0. That stayed off during the that stayed off, and the power came on at looks like just around about 1 o'clock in the morning. So once again the grid came on and it charged our battery up. Now we can overlay the battery state of charge on this and we can see what happened. So the battery discharged all the way, and it discharged to about 79%. Once the power came on, it started charging the battery up again, and it charged the battery to full. Once the battery was full, you can see the power drop again, and only supplying the power that is needed in the house. This spike over here in the mornings, that's the geyser going on. I have got it on a timer. It goes on somewhere 6 o'clock in the morning for if we want to have a shower in the morning. It is, I think, a 3 kilowatt element in there. So yeah, that's why we have got this massive spike in the power. But the sun also came out and it helped us supplying power to the house. But once again, if we zoom into this a little bit more, we can see the power went off again at 7 o'clock in the morning. So immediately the geyser dropped offline because that's not part of the essential load, and the solar started taking over. At that stage the solar was making enough power to charge the batteries that discharged slightly there. So we can see the solar charging the batteries up, but also supplying the home of power. And yeah, then there was a spike in the electricity. The battery supplied that, the solar supplied that as well, and somebody probably used a microwave or whatever it was. Right, so that is a power consumption graph for this morning. So there was a lot happening with all the power failures, but at no time did I sit without power. The computers keeps on running. Nothing, you would not know there was a power outage. I mean, the first time I actually realized we had load shedding is when I put the computer on and I saw this graph and I saw, well, yeah, we had some power failures. So I'll step back one day, which was quite interesting. The perfect sunny day that we had here in Jeffreys Bay. The sun was shining pretty much throughout the day with no clouds. Once again, in the morning there was some load shedding. One can see the power came on, that's the grid power in the yellow bit, and it charged the battery up all the way to 100%. Then it supplied the house until the geyser kicked in again, and it helped the little bit of solar that was available at somewhere around 6 o'clock in the morning already. And as the solar got better, and I see then we had power failure again there in 7 o'clock in the morning. So you can see there is zero power from the grid from 7 till 9 o'clock. But at 9 o'clock the power came on. You'll also notice, I'll zoom in there a little bit again, you'll also notice that the solar panels at that stage only supply power what the house needs. So there's no, the power can't go anywhere. The battery is fully charged. The grid is offline, so we can't push power back into the grid. But as soon as the power came on, we can see immediately we started pushing power back into the grid. So at that stage, it was 9 o'clock in the morning. We were producing almost 6 kilowatt of power, and just we were just at that stage also then pushing power, 5 kilowatts of power back into the grid. Now you can see the grid power that we are on this part of the graph is almost the exact opposite of the power that we are producing from the solar panels. And yeah, this is the amount of power that went into the grid for that day. We can have a look at the rest of the graphs later on. So this is just to explain. One can see there again, power failure. The grid is offline, and we are only supplying from the solar panels what the house require. There it's starting to get nighttime. The power, we're not at 6 o'clock at night. The solar panels can't supply the house anymore with the power that it will need. And one can see on the top here, the battery starts helping out to supply the house with power. Right, same story. Grid came online, charged the batteries up. So why I'm doing it this way with the batteries that is charging, or the grid that's charging my batteries. Where I am at the moment in Jeffreys Bay, our power is a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I put 1 kilowatt into the grid, I can take 1 kilowatt out of the grid. I spec'd it that way for if at a later stage, and I know Eskom has made this announcement in the last couple of days, that they will start paying suppliers for the power that they supply. I am not losing anything, but I'm also not gaining anything. Yes, I lost in that because I've paid too much for solar panels, probably, you know, overspected. But in winter time, one can see that I then supply in winter enough power as well to run my house off the solar panels. So yes, on an average, we can have a look at that now. I'm still supplying, I think, a little bit more power into the grid than what I'm using, but this whole system was designed that I run at basically net zero for 365 days of the year. Okay, so this is a graph that I put together from the data that came from the Solarman software. Why I'm showing this is that the anticipated yield, that brown bars that we've got, is what we anticipate to make once we can start selling power. Now the figure that was put in there was R1.90, I think, per kilowatt, and this is what we anticipate we could make every month once start selling power. Now I'm sure it's not going to be R1.90 per kilowatt, because at the moment the price is R2.11. It's going up with another 19%, so they'll probably only pay you half for what you will have to pay. So even if it's R2.11 now, and it will be R2.50 by the time, so let's say they will pay us R1, then you know those prices can be halved. We can I can probably try and do that in the software, but I can take half of that. So if that month of January would have been paid 3,000, so we would have made 1,500 Rand for that month, and the same for the worst month of June, which was 1,400 Rand, so you know 700 Rand for that month. If you think that my electricity bill is only that I have to only pay for the privilege to have electricity connected to my house, not that you know you're getting any electricity, maybe if you're lucky for half the day, I pay 383 Rand. That is my electricity bill. municipality is going to pay me for supplying them with electricity, bargain, you know, then I'll probably put another 6 panels on here. I'll have to work out and see what's the maximum that I can push through the cables, but yeah, I'm sure I can push another 2 kilowatt or so on top of that, what I've got at the moment. Right, let's continue with the chart. Data overlay, that's basically what is happening also. So we haven't fed anything. Let's bring these two together and we can have a look. So we haven't really fed anything into the grid today or right now, because the power went off as the sun was rising, so there was no excess power to feed back into the grid. I have produced at to this stage 3.3 kilowatt. The battery charge was we charged the battery with 3 kilowatts of power, and the total consumption from 12 o'clock till, well, this was at 9 o'clock, was 12 kilowatts of power. This is just a nice to have. You can also select this month, what happened this month. So we have produced this month, and we had lots of cloudy days this month. So we produced 1.04 megawatts. We fed into the grid 450 kilowatts, and we consumed 1.1 megawatts, and we purchased 5.8. So very interesting. I'll have a look that I actually did use a little bit more power this month, but I must remember that we were almost 3 families living in the house for the first week and a bit of this month of the family came to visit. So we were a lot of people, I think 12 people in the house in total. So yes, that obviously played a role, and we can have a look at the graph at the bottom. We've looked at the flow chart, and I will wait a little bit till the power comes on and continue just explaining a little bit more on the flow chart, and we can see what's happening there. So self-explanatory, that's the weather that we have at the moment. We can update that, and we can see we're expecting drizzle tomorrow. It's a nice sunny day at the moment. It's 23, we're expecting 25 degrees. Historical data. Now this is very useful for me, and I can, you know, there are many options and many parameters that you can add to this graph, and it can get busy if one needs to, you know, and you can stare at it for quite some time to analyze what you are doing. But let's just start with the 2 parameters at the moment. Now if we look at the historical data graph, we can see this is for the month of January. The first couple of days we can see there was quite a lot of power used, and as I explained in the beginning of the video, the first couple of days there was we were still a lot of people living in the house, so we used quite a lot of electricity, I think, and one can see that by, you know, just hovering over the graph. This is the blue is the production, and the red would be the what we have consumed. And we can also just read it off there. The production was 48, the consumption 55, and so on and so on. We can carry on for each day. During this period, we also had what we call stage 6 load shedding. Now, stage 6 load shedding in our area where we live, twice a day the power goes off for 4 hours at a time, and then once a day for 2.5 hours at a time. So you know, in a day you will only have half a day of electricity, and you can also see this by looking. Yes, it was a rainy day there, so we produced quite a lot less power, but you can also see that because of that I cannot put power back into the grid. That also makes a big difference to what you you will then get paid back at the end of the day. No point in having the grid offline if you can't put power back into the grid. As I say, this is the historical data for the month of January. There are a lot of parameters that you can superimpose onto this chart, and we can just have a look at some interesting ones. Grid feed in, so let's put that on there. Now we've got another little line there, and we can see that on this day, obviously, like as we said earlier on, must have been a very rainy day, and we produced only 16 kilowatts. We consumed 52 kilowatts, and the grid we only supplied with 1.3 kilowatts of power. If we go to a more sunny day like yesterday, we can see that we produced 52 kilowatts, we consumed only 36 kilowatts, and we put the difference basically goes into the grid of 32 kilowatts. Just by looking at it, you can get an idea of what you have been putting back into the grid. Now we can go for the year. This is 2023, but let's have a look at something that will be more meaningful to us. This is 2022. Grid feeding, production and consumption. And this is what we have seen. For 2022 production, for January, we can see that we produced 1.5 megawatts, consumed 1 megawatt of power, and generally through the year, so as it gets closer to winter, obviously for the southern hemisphere, winter is in June, July, August. So summertime, which is January here, we produce the most power, and one can see through the year it drops off month by month to literally to the middle of the year, month 6, we produced the least amount of power, but we used more than what we produced that month. Okay, so we consumed 1 megawatt, and we only produced 750 kilowatts. It's getting more. I had during October, November, I was out the country, and I had an internet problem. So these 2 months were not accurate with the production values. I produced definitely a little bit more than that, and you know, only when I got back I managed to fix the internet problem there, and the data could be captured again. But this is for 2022, and alright, so if we look at the historical data, the yearly figures, I have installed the system in October 2022. Correction, 2020. So that's why we're only sitting at those figures. 2021, I also produced more than I consumed. So production that year was 10 megawatts, 10.4, and we only consumed 10. 2022, when we installed more panels, we could see that the production went up to 13 megawatts, but we still consumed only that 10 megawatts of power, a little bit more for 2022. And then obviously we're in the first month of 2023, we've produced our 1 megawatt of power, and we consumed 1.5. So it's slightly down, but I'm sure there's a couple of days to go, and we will, if the sun is shining, pass that and probably break even for that month. That is the Solarman Smart app in a nutshell. I will do some more videos on the system. I will show what the system looks like, the installation. We had a look at the solar panels on video 1 on the roof, a little bit on the one side, but I will show the inverter batteries and that side of the setup on another video, and then I'm also planning to show with the installer the whole process of installing the solar system and how long it takes, and also have a good chat with him, maybe to hear his thoughts on the solar in South Africa. I'll just do a quick refresh and see where we stand with today's power. Okay, so I'm just going to put this little bit in here since the power has come back online, and just to explain the flow chart where we have got grid power. Once again, now we can see it's much later in the day, and we're making almost 8 kilowatt of power from the solar panels. The house is only consuming at this stage now 1.4. The battery is full, and it just trickle charges, and whatever we are not using between the battery and the house get pushed back into the grid. So we producing almost 8 and pushing back into the grid almost 6 kilowatt. If we go up to our little data overview, we can see that we've already swung around. We've fed in more than what we consumed, and it is just after 11 o'clock in the day. Looking at the curve again, if I can just overlay the feed-in power as well as the state of charge, we can easily see what is happening there, that we are feeding in power, and battery is full, producing a lot of power. I hope this was informative, and if there are any questions, please leave it in the comments, and I will get back to you. Have a wonderful day.